everyone, in this video I'm going to demonstrate the concept of fat over lean in oil painting. In oil paint, the beauty of it is that you can really push and blend the paint and sculpt it to your desired liking. It really is the best tool to create a masterpiece. A properly rendered painting won't crack and is flexible over time. This is where the concept of fat over lean comes in. What fat over lean means is that you want more flexible paint to dry over less flexible paint, while building the painting to become thicker and thicker over the different layers. Paint that has more oil content in it will dry more flexible, whereas paint that is more lean will dry more stiff. Whenever anything that is more stiff is poured or dried on top of a more flexible layer, it's more prone to cracking over time. Think of a cement flooring where the cement is poured over an epoxy layer. The cement will eventually crack because epoxy is more flexible than cement. So this is not just for the purpose of making your painting last longer and not damaging over time. In any painting with multiple layers, you want the earlier layers to dry before the subsequent layers. Applying fat over lean will enhance your ability to achieve this, with the initial layers being more thin and drying faster, and the subsequent layers being thicker and drying slower. You end up with a painting that is sculpted to your artistic style by adding fluid and consistent markings, and also adding a lot of thick and crisp markings at the end as well to build a really thick and three-dimensional looking painting. To understand more about how oil mediums and paint thinners work, please check out my other video on oil mediums. For this tutorial, it's important that you understand what fat and lean means and what oil content and painting mediums refer to. When I say painting medium, I'm referring to the solution that you're dipping the paint in to mix the color. Oil content means the amount of oil that is in your paint. And oil color is just the paint that is straight from the tube. Anything that is more fat means that there's more oil content in your paint. This can be alkyd, walnut alkyd medium, linseed, stand oil, or poppy oil. Anything that is more lean means not adding any oil content into your paint, or paint that has a thinner in it, which leans it out even more. There are two ways to apply fat over lean, and I'll demonstrate both approaches.
The first approach uses varying amounts of the same painting medium throughout a painting. Since oil painting mediums are fat, when you add medium to oil color, the oil content increases. In the initial layers of a painting, add a minimal amount of painting medium or none at all. Then increase the amount of painting medium as you build up the painting layers. The ratio of medium to paint increases as you continue the painting. This is the painting that I will be using to demonstrate fat over lean. What you see here is just the first layer of paint, and I didn't use any painting medium. It's just pure oil paint straight from the tube. And this is the palette that I use to paint the first initial layer. For the subsequent layers, I'm going to use a walnut alkyd medium to mix into my palette. Since I don't have to mix a painting medium, I'm just going to pour a small amount of oil directly onto my palette. This is the reference photo that I'm painting from. It's a model that I photographed myself, and you'll notice that in a lot of my paintings that I paint from photos. What I'm demonstrating here is a second layer of paint in the forehead area using the fat over lean technique. Since the first layer was painted without any oil medium, I'm going to paint the second layer with a small amount of walnut alkyd medium, essentially making the second layer more fat than the previous layer. I already had some color pre-mix from yesterday, and I'm just making small adjustments to it as I'm color matching to my photo. Once the color is pretty close, I'm going to dab a tiny amount of oil medium into the paint. You'll see that it appears a lot fatter here. The key here is that whatever amount of medium you're using for your current layer, the subsequent layers would have to have more oil content, so the painting gets fatter and fatter as you paint. So it's easier to use less to begin with, so you don't have to keep adding oil into it. I'll demonstrate this again up close of how to make the paint more fat. So first mix your desired color and then add the painting medium into the paint. You can really see the difference between the paint with oil medium and the paint that has no medium. It's a lot more fat. Now I'm going to add the paint to the highlight regions of the forehead. With the paint being more thick, I can paint it on with more distinct brush marks, building it up to make it look more thick. By making the paint more thick in the highlight areas where her forehead is closest to me, I'm making the painting more three-dimensional. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to paint the initial layer to make it more lean than all the subsequent layers. I'm going to paint the side of the face here. So mix the desired color first. I always like to color match it to the photo in order to prove my colors before applying it to the painting. It's actually very straightforward with this method of fat over lean because you're really just painting the first layer with pure oil paint and not having to worry about any painting medium. You'll see that the painting goes on less oily and runny and it's very lean. I'll demonstrate again how to apply a fat layer of paint over a lean layer of paint, mixing your desired color first and then adding the oil medium to it to make it more fat. And I'll demonstrate this with the hair that's already been painted on once without any oil medium. You don't necessarily have to keep track of the amount of oil you use in each section. Just make sure that you keep each layer consistent and don't use a lot of medium to begin with. Don't start thickening and fattening your paint until you've built up most of your painting. For this example, I'm pretty comfortable with how the hair looks underneath, so I'm adding these warm highlights as thicker paint. So remember, I'm using walnut alkyd medium for the parts of the painting that I want to fatten up. The second approach requires you to mix your painting medium, using the same ratio of painting medium to oil color throughout a painting. However, the fat content of the painting medium is modified between each paint layer. In the initial layers, the oil medium is mixed with gamsol. Now remember, oil medium is fat, whereas gamsol is lean. And as you paint different layers, increase the oil content of the medium by adding walnut alkyd medium to your painting medium. The bottom layers will have more gamsol and less oil, and the top layers will have more oil and less gamsol. This second method requires you to mix an oil medium and a thinner. I'm using walnut alkyd medium and gamsol. And the rule of fat over lean is easier to understand if you remember that gamsol is lean and walnut alkyd medium is fat. You'll need two separate containers. One of them you'll have to put equal parts of gamsol and alkyd medium. This will be the medium you start to paint with. The second one you'll only use walnut alkyd medium, which is for later stages to achieve the fat look. So in one of the containers, pour equal parts of gamsol and alkyd medium, and I like to call this solution my half and half. So now I'm just going to pick an existing color on my palette, which is just straight oil paint. I'm going to dip a small amount of this half and half into this color. Then paint a thin layer of this green color onto my wood panel. You can see that this layer of paint is very thin and lean with the presence of gamsol in the painting medium. This makes it even more lean than just pure oil paint. The gamsol really breaks down the oil content and spreads the pigment to achieve this lean effect. Now I'm going to choose a different color and make it more fat with the second layer of paint. I'm going to dab a small amount of walnut alkyd medium to it. I'm not using any of the half and half. This is just oil color mixed with oil medium. You can see that this paint looks more fat already with the increased oil content in the paint compared to the green that we just used. And now I'm going to paint this violet on top of the green. See how it doesn't dilute the green, and I'm able to layer it on really nicely. In the third layer, I'm going to mix a different color, just adding white to the violet. And I'm going to use even more oil medium to really fattening it up. You can see that I can easily make distinct brush marks, creating unique markings with the brush. And the paint appears a lot thicker and fatter than our initial layer. This is how you can paint fat over lean while protecting the longevity of the painting.
By applying one of these fat over lean techniques, you're able to build a painting to look thicker and thicker during each subsequent layer. All of this can prevent your painting from cracking over time, and the painting is more flexible and allows you to really create these expressive and thick markings in your paintings and to really hone in on your creative style over time. I hope this video was helpful in maybe giving you some ideas for your creative endeavors that are coming up. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know of any questions in the comments below. I'll see you next time.